Good morning. I'm Devasena. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about data aggregation strategies in wireless sensor networks. Wireless sensor networks data aggregation strategies. Sensor nodes are resource constrained and possesses limited battery. So, to avoid the usage of more resources and battery power, data sensed by sensor nodes must be aggregated and disseminated to other nodes. Data aggregation. Data aggregation is the process of collecting data from different sensor nodes and combining it together by applying aggregate functions. Aggregation strategies are used to enhance the network lifetime. The various aggregation strategies used in wireless sensor network are as follows. First one, continuous packet sensing and dissemination. Second is continuous packet collection and dissemination. Third one is programmed packet collection and dissemination. Fourth one is programmed packet aggregation and dissemination. Fifth one is programmed demand-based aggregation and dissemination. The last one is weighted event and demand-based data aggregation. Continuous packet sensing and dissemination (CPSD). CPSD does not perform actual aggregation. It is also called as zero propagation scheme. In this method, each node senses the data at fixed sensing intervals and the node immediately transmitting the received data to the cluster head without storing in the buffer. CPSD is widely used in the situation where the fresh messages are required and the reception of data is required very urgent. Continuous packet collection and dissemination (CPCD). In CPCD, each node uses buffer to store the collected and sensed data. Buffer is a hardware unit and the storage area is allocated by the software used in the sensor node. Each node has to wait until the buffer gets filled by data. The sensor node keeps on sensing data and tries to fill the buffer. Once the buffer is filled, the sensor node will start to disseminate data to other nodes. Programmed packet collection and dissemination (PPCD). In PPCD, each sensor node senses the environment and collects the data to store in the buffer. The sensor node will not disseminate the data immediately to other node. Instead, the node sets a dissemination time interval and waits until the time expires. If the dissemination interval time expires, then the sensor node will start to disseminate the buffered data to other nodes. If buffer overflow occurs before the dissemination interval, then the old packet will be replaced by the newly arrived data. If buffer overflow occurs before the dissemination interval, then the old packet will be replaced by the newly arrived data. So, increasing the dissemination time will highly reduce the regularity of packet transmission on the network. This scheme can be used in situations where the data to be transmitted is not a critical one. Programmed packet aggregation and dissemination (PPAD). In this scheme, each node senses the data and apply the required aggregate functions such as average, minimum and maximum, standard deviation, etc. on the sensed data. Each Each sensor node stores only the aggregated data rather than storing the sensed data. Finally, the buffer contains only one aggregated data and thereby saving memory. Programmed demand-based aggregation and dissemination, that is PDAD. In this scheme, each node senses the data and aggregates it. The aggregated data can be disseminated to the access point whenever required. So, this process is carried out on demand basis and data gathering is done by the access point. This data gathering may be simple collection or query based one. For instance, the access point may arise a query to receive temperature data. All the nodes respond to this query by sending temperature detail of the environment. This scheme is widely used in the situation where the data is required in on-demand basis. Weighted event and demand-based data aggregation. This aggregation strategy is useful in the places where the sensed data is meeting a prefixed threshold value. In this scheme, all the sensed data will not be stored in the buffer. Instead, only the data that goes below or above the fixed threshold is maintained. Such data will be disseminated to the cluster head. The cluster head collects the data from their nodes and set a weighted value depending upon the distance of the sensor node to the cluster head. Based on the weighted value, the cluster head propagates the collected data to the access point. Thank you very much for listening this lecture. If you like this lecture means kindly share this video to your friends. For further updates, kindly subscribe my channel. Thank you.